Good day, good people, and welcome to Contemplative Inner Being on the Mighty Network. I am Brother Robert Farrell, and you are so welcome whether you are watching the live session or watching the recording. We are glad you are here. I'd like to remind everyone here in the live session that anytime tonight something comes to your heart you'd like to share, just type it into the chat. We will go with the flow, as the phrase is. Whether you have a reflection, you want to echo something you heard, you want to use the chat section to take notes, that's quite fine. We're looking forward to engaging and encountering with you. Our topic tonight is breathing underwater. This is part 2 of a 2-part series. But if you missed the first part, don't worry about it. They're kind of standalone as they are. Also, you can go watch that recording later if you'd like to as well. I also like to remind everyone that at 11:15 each day, there is a post on the Mighty Network that will reinforce, revisit what we have talked about tonight. So there's another opportunity for you to encounter and discover there as well. If you will, let me know in the chat section that you're hearing and seeing okay. Wonderful. Thank you very much. I'd like us to take time now to practice, as we are committed in the contemplative path, to being in silence together, to being present to presence. You are invited to take a minute to gently breathe in and out. Close your eyes if that's comfortable. Sit in a way that's comfortable for you to be receptive and present. With each exhale is a letting go. With each inhale is a reception of the Divine Spirit. We receive the Divine Spirit and we let go of the busyness of the day. We let go of the planning for the week to come. We simply let go of thoughts and images and just move into that heart space where we can fully be present and connected to the divine. Let us join in the silence together for a few minutes. a slow, gentle, deep inhale, followed by a slow exhale and opening your eyes. Friends, just a brief intro. Breathing underwater is a metaphor for learning to live, survive, and even grow in situations that feel overwhelming, disorienting, or beyond our control. It describes our spiritual capacity to stay present and grounded in the midst of suffering, in the midst of powerlessness, in the midst of emotional depth that would normally cause panic, avoidance, or collapse. And it suggests an impossible task, breathing where there's no air. But spiritually, it points to the inner transformation that allows us to live with what we once thought we couldn't endure. It names the paradox of grace, that the very places of struggle, loss, failure, they actually become the places of awakening and healing. But only if we surrender, if we let go of control and allow ourselves to be changed. To breathe underwater is to stay with pain or discomfort without escaping, to find a deeper source of strength that's not rooted in the ego, to let the false self die so that the true self can emerge, and really to trust that the Spirit can sustain us in what feels unsustainable. Now, Richard Rohr uses this image to describe how the 12 steps and the gospel both teach a wisdom of descent, that path of transformation that we have through surrender, not through achievement. And so tonight, I really want to emphasize the spiritual part of this, but we do have so much to learn from 12 step, and I will try to name those steps as we go through, probably about halfway through, so hopefully we'll get there, and I look forward to seeing your reflections in the chat as we do. Friends, there is a hush in the soul before the first word is spoken. It is a kind of spiritual twilight where stillness has more to say than noise ever could. It is in the quiet that the soul, like a child in soft pajamas, that's where we tiptoe toward the divine, unsure whether to ask or just be. And this is the beginning of prayer. Now, it's not the transaction we so often imagine it to be, but it's a homecoming, a return to a holy conversation already in progress. And remember, it's not about changing God as if God were a reluctant parent needing persuasion. It's more like tuning a forgotten instrument, letting our own frequencies align with the music that's already humming beneath the surface of things. When we humbly ask for our shortcomings to be removed, step 7, we are not approaching a vending machine with the right code. We are laying ourselves bare before the living mystery, trusting that the dismantling of what distorts us will not leave us empty, instead more whole. And it's this kind of asking that doesn't arise from desperation or spiritual ambition. It rises from the soil of surrender. It says, I trust you more than I trust myself. I trust that you know more and know what needs to be, what needs to go, and what must remain. In this prayer, we become apprentices to a deeper wisdom, one that chisels away not what we hate about ourselves, but what keeps love from flowing freely. There is a strange relief in admitting that we do not know how to heal ourselves. I want to say that again. There is a strange relief in admitting that we do not know how to heal ourselves. Like a blindfolded dancer learning new steps by feel rather than sight, we must yield to the rhythm of grace. Our attempts at self-correction often end up polishing the mask rather than removing it. And when we fail and fail again, we begin to taste the honesty that invites real change. Each stumble becomes a lantern, each fall a teacher. Asking, seeking, knocking, these are not means to an end, but ways to stay in right relationship with the wildness of life. We don't ask because we're certain we will receive. We ask because it keeps the soul open. We knock not to barge in, but to learn how to wait at the threshold. We seek not because the answers are hidden, but because the search itself reshapes the seeker. And yet to grow spiritually is never to bypass our human messiness. If we are to move toward the holy, we must also return to the places we have fractured, the people we have wounded, the bridges we have let burn in our haste or carelessness. You see, spiritual growth isn't a ladder, it's a spiral. And we circle back not in regression, but in the kind of grace that refuses to let brokenness be the last word. Refuse to let brokenness be the last word. So, to make a list of those we have harmed is not a bureaucratic task. I'm talking about step 8 here. It is a reckoning, a naming of ghost. Each name is a bell rung in the chapel of memory. Each face is a mirror reflecting who we were and perhaps still are. It is hard, holy work, this naming. Not because it flatters us, but because it humbles us. In this act, we declare, I have not lived untouched by selfishness. I have caused harm. I see it now. I am willing to be changed by that seeing. But friends, willingness is not a straight line. Often it's more like the trembling before a long-held breath. We begin by being willing to be willing. Grace meets us even there. That is the rhythm of grace. The movement toward amends doesn't cancel the pain that we've caused. It begins the slow mending. It does not fix the past. It orients our posture toward it. We start walking with our heads bowed, not in shame, but in reverence for what reconciliation might still be possible. Mercy is not a soft word. It has weight. It bruises and heals all at once. To receive mercy, especially when we feel unworthy, is to be cracked open by the sheer generosity of the universe. To offer it, especially when the wound is deep, is to become more than we thought we could be. Mercy does not erase the hurt. It simply makes space for something more than pain to be present. As Anne Lamott's story shows, mercy is costly, and real forgiveness often drips slow like sap from a winter tree. It doesn't happen quickly, nor should it. Its pace is the pace of the soul. the pace of the soul. And then comes the dance, fragile, trembling, bold, making direct amends. Making direct amends does not shout its arrival. We're talking step 9 here, by the way. Making direct amends moves with the subtlety of someone placing a hand over their own heart before knocking on another's door. Direct amends are never just about justice. They are about reclaiming our shared humanity. They are a way of saying, I hurt you, and I'm not running from that truth. I am here face to face, flawed and willing. Even when met with silence or rejection, our side of the door remains open. And here, wisdom becomes the artist's brush. Now, not every apology should be made in person. Not every wound is ready to receive an offering. Skillful means remind us that truth is not just what is said, but how and when it is said. We are not called to perform apologies, but to offer them with discernment and care. Sometimes the truest amends we can make is to change our lives, not just our words. To become the kind of person who could never again do what we once did. Desmond Tutu's daughter speaks of reparations as a dance, and indeed it is. The opening of a door, the listening, the asking, the not knowing, the hopeful steps forward, the grief that surfaces, the patience that is required, the willingness to let love, not shame, lead the way, the humility to let another set the rhythm. This dance does not demand forgiveness. It extends a hand without insisting it be taken. It says, I will wait, I will listen, I will love without needing to be absolved. True amends and are not acts of spiritual heroism. They are quiet revolutions of the heart. They are a slow unraveling of the knots we've tied around others and ourselves. They are the soft labor of making space for a future where healing is not just possible, but actual, where love is no longer conditional, where our own dignity is restored in the very act of honoring another's pain. What, then, is the heart of this journey? It is the move from control to surrender, from hiding to honesty, from distance to intimacy. We are not meant to live sealed off from one another, polishing our own goodness while ignoring our wake. The spiritual path calls us into the very places we most want to avoid. And there it teaches us to love more fully. Friends, in the end, we do not change ourselves. We are changed by grace, by truth, by the radical humility of admitting we do not have all the answers. We are changed when we risk being real, when we knock not for reward but for relationship, when we ask not for favors but for formation, when we apologize not to erase but to become. To live this way is to live with a listening heart. one that leans in close to the teachings of those who have walked before us, those who fell, rose, asked, offered, risked, and prayed. Their wisdom is not found in perfection, but in their willingness to keep dancing, even when the music was hard to hear. They show us that humility is not weakness. It is the sacred soil from which transformation grows. So take a breath. Maybe there's one thing you've connected with thus far and you would like to share it in the chat. I'll give you a little time to ponder and type that in. Let me give you a succinct recap before we go into the silence again while you're typing. The spiritual lesson we're looking at reveals that true transformation does not come from control or perfection. It comes through surrender, honesty, and deep listening. Now, prayers of petition reshape the one who prays rather than the divine. And making amends, personal, thoughtful, and skillful, that's what grounds us in the shared human story of harm and healing. That's really what step 8 and 9 are about. So mercy, offered and received, that's what becomes the fabric of grace that holds brokenness tenderly without denying its pain. So remember, this journey is not linear, it's spiral and relational, always inviting us toward deeper love, toward deeper humility, toward radical trust in the mystery that holds us all. So let us enter into the silence together. There's a question, and I will try to address that when we come out. Take a gentle, deep breath. Allow mercy to enter you. Allow yourself to surrender to it. That is what we practice in the silence together. Again, a gentle deep breath. Simply be here now. Be present. There's nowhere else to be. Just to touch on it again, not every apology needs to be made in person, because not every wound is ready to receive an offering. What else do I want to say about that? We are not called to perform apologies, but to offer them with discernment and care. And when we apologize, we're not doing it to erase anything, we're doing it to become. I hope that's helpful. Now, friends, I want to share with you, it begins with a pause. Not the dramatic kind, no thunder, no spotlight, but the quiet yielding of attention, like a leaf falling slowly into still water. This is the threshold of awareness, the silent moment when the self catches itself watching. There, in that hush between breath and thought, we are invited, not summoned or commanded, but gently invited into the luminous terrain of consciousness. And so this daily turning inward might seem at first a bit dry, like tracing the same path in the sand again and again. And for those of you that have practiced centering prayer or other forms of meditation, you know that those first times it was very dry. But when we look closer, what you'll find is that it's less like retracing a line and more like tending a garden. It's very humble, repetitive, and yet endlessly alive. So each time we turn to this inward gaze, we catch subtle shifts. The curling edge of a petal, the tremble of a bud not yet bloomed, the soil deepening with each return. Now, step 10, with its talk of personal inventory, might evoke some images of balancing ledgers or checking boxes. But what if we imagined it instead as entering a forest at dusk, the light dimming just enough to ask our senses to wake up differently? Here, awareness becomes more than observation. It becomes participation. We don't just watch our lives. We walk through them with reverent curiosity. Richard Rohr speaks of consciousness not as a mirror, but as the quiet presence behind the mirror. The silent witness watching us watching. And it is less about judgment and more about companionship. It does not condemn our missteps. It waits for us to see them clearly enough to offer them up, like small chipped stones, that you remove from your shoe. There's no fanfare in this. There's no need for harsh self-recrimination. Just gentle, almost tender acknowledgement. Yes, that happened. And yes, it can be healed. Sister Macrina Whitaker offers her own lens, a series of questions that are like lanterns placed along a winding path. Her questions don't seek answers as much as they seek awakening. Have the ears of my heart opened to the voice of God? The language calls us out of the realm of mere logic and into the tactile, intimate world of feeling. Have the ears of my heart opened to the voice of God? Now, friends, this is not the realm of spreadsheets and bullet points. This is the space of spiritual echolocation, listening, not for instruction, but for resonance. Each question she offers is a finger laid gently on the pulse of the day. They are not invasive. They do not interrogate. They listen. I encourage you to explore those. And in doing so, they teach us to listen. They draw us not to the moral perfection, but to spiritual availability. We are being invited to become porous, to let the divine seep in through the cracks we've so carefully tried to seal. And the journey continues. Step 11 asks us to go even further, not to strive, but to soften. Step 11 is prayer and meditation. These are often misunderstood words, and they can be stripped of performance and returned to presence. Richard Rohr wisely names how prayer is not the act of trying harder. It is rather the art of stepping aside. It is allowing the ego to lower its voice so that the soul might speak from its deeper language, the language of silent surrender and subtle longing. Friends, when Mother Teresa told her sisters to pray and meditate not just to find God, but to remember they were loved, she was not offering sentimentality. She was offering survival. Love, she said, must soak into every cell, not just to keep it, but to give it away. We do not pray to stockpile worthiness. We pray to become vessels through which love might flow, to flow unencumbered, to flow generous, to flow real. Teresa Jacob Stewart reminds us that the path to conscious contact is often paved with long, quiet hours on the cushion, where not much seems to happen, but everything is quietly rearranged. And this really is the paradox of contemplative practice. It often feels like nothing for weeks, months, maybe longer, until one day we look back and notice that everything has changed. Not the circumstances, perhaps, but the way we hold them, the way we are held within them. And then we arrive at the edge of the path, which is step 12, so to speak, where we are here not to stop, but to begin again in a new way. And this is the step that breathes outward. It moves the practice from the quiet interior to the noisy, aching world. It's the moment the candle is carried outside, even if the wind is fierce. And Richard Rohr speaks very honestly about his regrets, not demanding enough, not inviting people soon enough into the radical practice of giving away what they had received. Without this outward arc, spirituality becomes a museum, climate controlled, curated, and lifeless. To follow the path inward without turning outward is to circle oneself endlessly. And to break that cycle is to walk toward others with open hands. Now, my teacher, James Finley, who is also echoing Thomas Merton, his teacher, warns against the temptation to float above the suffering of the world as though transcendence means detachment. It does not. To transcend in the truest sense is to be so saturated in love that we willingly carry sorrow without being broken by it. To live mystically is not to escape, but to endure with a love that refuses to look away. My friends, this is no abstract ethic. It is a visceral call. The mystic does not rise above the brokenness of the world. They kneel in it, with rolled up sleeves and a listening heart ready to serve. And every time we embody love, embody forgiveness, embody attention and humility, we are living out what was once silent within us. Every time we offer comfort, every time we offer a hand, or even just presence, we are making visible the invisible teachings of our inward journey. And what then is the lesson? It is that the spiritual life is not linear but spiral. We begin again and again, not because we have failed, but because we are being deepened. We come back to the questions not to find answers, but to be reformed by the asking. One great practice, the daily examen, is not a test, it's an invitation. Meditation is not escape, but arrival, and service is not a reward for inner peace. It is the very soil in which it blooms. So the journey, in truth, is one of remembering who we are, remembering who walks with us, and remembering that every inner awakening longs to find expression in the world. This is the art of contemplation and action. My friends, the path is tender, it's radical, and it's unshakably rooted in love that does not insist or perform. It just simply is. Love that listens, love that lets go, and love that gives itself away because it cannot help but do so. So please take a moment to share what's on your heart in the chat section. Really, what's on your heart? Let me give a short little recap before we go into the silence. I think the lesson that emerges here is this: to live awake is to live listening to the quiet voice within that seeks truth without judgment, to the cry of others in need of care, and to the presence of divine love that saturates our being. Love is not something you create. Love is who you are. You were made by love. You were made with love. You were made through love. You were made as love. And this love invites us to remember we are held, to rest in that awareness, and then to rise, carrying that love outward. Not doctrine or duty, but natural overflow. You see, spiritual maturity is not a private perfection, but a deepening of humility, of receptivity, and compassionate action. We do not ascend away from the world, we descend more deeply in it, bearing the light we have kindled within. So as we enter into the silence, know that that is love, that you are entering into love. And love is within you. It's like water in the fish. The fish is in the water and water is in the fish. You cannot separate yourself from it. And this is the practice that we practice when we go into silence together. Take a gentle, deep breath. Put your hand on your heart. Be present to love. It is all around you. It is all within you. It is your divine DNA. So awaken to it. and then go out and share it and give it away. Friends, to develop the skills, the art of breathing underwater is to develop in the way of radical resilience. So I hope you have found some meaning in this evening. And next week we're going to talk about living in the big picture, or what Jesus called the reign of God. I hope to see you again soon. Until we meet again, may you walk gently in the quiet where awareness stirs, letting the hush between breaths speak truth deeper than noise. And may you return often to the space of presence, where honest reflection, spiritual communion, and self-giving love reshape the contours of your becoming. That's steps 10, 11, and 12, by the way. And may this path, spiraling inward and outward, remind you that grace always meets you where you are, not trying to fix you, just there to accompany you on the path. Blessings to all. Have a wonderful evening. Good night.